Hello and welcome at our GCP-Mindset channel. Today we speak about vendor management. I have a guest, an expert with me here, Pagona, Manika. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Andreas, for inviting me.
Pagona, thank you for being here to talk with me about vendor management. According to my knowledge, you even lead a team of vendor managers. Tell me a little bit more about vendor management, but please start with yourself.
Hi, Andreas. Again, thank you for inviting me. Well, my background is a little bit of a mixed situation. I have studied many years ago marketing, and I have applied everything I've learned there in a small business I used to have in Greece for quite a long time. Then at some point I decided to leave and go to London, where I studied clinical psychology. I have a specialization in mental health. And during my time there, I worked for the private psychiatric health sector and also the National Health Service in the UK. At some point in 2016, I relocated to Germany, where I got involved with the clinical research field. I was a study site coordinator, and before 3 years, I joined GCP-Service International as a vendor manager. And back in that time, it was a one-woman show, basically, which now has been developed into a very small team of vendor managers, and we're really happy to work on this field.
Okay, interesting. And is your education helpful for what you're doing now?
Oh yes, absolutely. Studying psychology, it gives a great advantage that I think I actually put in good use on a daily basis. One of the first things that you learn is become an active listener. And being an active listener really helps you to become an effective communicator. And communication, effective communication especially, is a key factor in vendor management. Also, one more thing that it accommodates is you become a little bit of an open-minded person. You think outside the box, and you are able to implement new ideas, change the perspective, and consequently change a little bit of the future.
Pagona, you are working in a very international business. Do you see any cultural differences in your job?
Absolutely. The world international business is all about cultural differences, because you work with people from across the planet, from all sides of the earth. And this is the first thing that you become aware of, that these differences are there. You need to acknowledge it. People come with different habits, with different customs, different ways of communicating. And your initial starting point is to acknowledge this in the first place. And of course, by acknowledging it, then it becomes easier to communicate with them and bridge the differences and be able to work together and be successful.
Okay, we are already very deep in the topic, but let's start with the definition of vendor management. What does it mean, a vendor?
So within the context of clinical trials, a vendor is either an individual or a company that provides services or material that are absolutely necessary for the conduct of the trial. So if you're a big pharmaceutical, a sponsor, you will most likely outsource one proportion of the study-related activities to a vendor. If you are a smaller size biotech, you will most likely outsource all the tasks to some vendor.
Okay, what kind of tasks, for example?
Well, it can be anything from the beginning of the actual concept of the trial, writing protocols, setting IABs in place, to submissions, to clinical monitoring, to everything. And this is what the CRO will take on.
Okay, now we know what a vendor is, but what is a vendor manager then?
The vendor manager is the person who is going to coordinate all this process of communication between the sponsor and the vendors, which is called vendor management in general, to accommodate the conduct of the study. So at the beginning of the study, the vendor management team is highly involved, is more intensely involved, because this is the stage where we need to identify vendors, to qualify them, to evaluate their services, to be able to bring them in, negotiate contracts, negotiate budgets, have everything in place, and then the project can start. During the duration of the project, then the vendor management team steps a little bit at the back, but we don't really disappear completely. We are in very close contact with the project managers and other teams that are involved in the conduct of the project. We receive constant feedback for the services of the vendor. In case there are budget updates and contract updates, we get involved again. In case there are issues and problems with the vendors, we will take action because this will be escalated to us.
Okay, according to my understanding, a sponsor outsourced to a vendor. You are the vendor manager and manage the vendors. But you are working already for a CRO, which is considered a vendor for a sponsor. So the question would be, what are you doing in a CRO? What's your daily working life?
Okay, so the CRO, which is already a vendor to the sponsor, is a full service provider. It means that it covers all the tasks in-house. There are also services, though, that need to be provided in countries out of our reach, that we need to go to Asia, to Latin America, to Africa, where there we will subcontract partner CROs that we have identified, qualified, audited, and we have been working with them for several years now. But besides that, there are also other services that we don't cover in-house. And these may include from translation services, depots for IMP storage and distribution, EDC, electronic data capture providers, long-term archiving, central labs, biobanking, and so on and so forth. Quite a lot of different services that are absolutely necessary for the trial. So in this case, we will identify suitable companies, we will subcontract them. Of course, we need to qualify them as well, audit them, and monitor their services.
Okay, but you don't select them only, you also take care of them during the course of the project.
Yes, of course. Actually, once we start working with them, our communication with the vendor may become a little bit more intense, because the initial qualification is the easy bit. You check their processes, you audit them, and everything is fine. But then when you start working, you see actually how they play the game. So in this case, we are involved with everyone who works on the project with the vendor, and we collect regular feedback. And in very close cooperation with our quality assurance department, we evaluate constantly their services. We may need to liaise with them during the project for budget updates and contract updates, or condition in the terms and tasks that are required for the project. So it is a constant thing. And of course, via this communication, we need to maintain the relationship as well, because we not only want to keep them for one project. If we evaluate the services, of course, we need to have a future relationship.
Yeah, very important. So there's a lot of communication during the course of a project, and you're working with single people, so freelancers, and you're working with CROs and labs. What do you prefer most? Working with freelancers or mid-sized companies, bigger companies?
Well, I would be lying if I say that I prefer larger CROs or big international companies, because I think that the whole process of communication becomes a bit more convoluted. Not only you lose control, it's like you lose yourself in these processes. I do prefer to work with professional, competent individuals or smaller companies. In these settings, the communication is much faster, and the likelihood of making mistakes is minimal. Even if there are mistakes in the process, it's really easy to pull everyone together, correct everything, and be back in the right track. You can move much faster together and adapt to changes quickly. And also, the relationships become a little bit more personal, which is something that I enjoy quite a lot. It's more on a humane level, where people want to meet with people, build trustful relationships, have fun together and work together and be together for a few years in this professional setting.
Yeah, I completely agree. Having fun in your job is the most important. Therefore, next question, what do you think are important skills for your vendor managers and your team?
Well, first of all, you definitely need to be a character who has a positive attitude at all times. You need to be an excellent communicator. You need to have these skills in order to be able to be open with people. You need to be resourceful and be able to adapt to changes really fast. It would be great if one has an eye on details, because you need to control for quality and check for quality, but at the same time, you should be able to make really fast decisions, really important decisions, without really delaying with your eye for detail. Good negotiation skills, this is something that needs to come out naturally, and be able to overcome problems in negotiation and make decisions faster.
What would you say are no-goes in terms of becoming a vendor manager?
If I can choose one thing, I would say that the one who is not a team player should not really consider themselves for this job. Vendor management is bringing people together. And if you cannot have this attitude, you can't really play the game. It's not chess.
Yeah.
You need to come from the starting point that you like to be around people. You enjoy to talk to people. You enjoy communicating with them. To have a natural ability to build the relationships, to maintain these relationships, keeping it strictly professional without losing its personal touch, and keep the network alive and breathing.
Yeah. And do you think also a kind of home bias is disturbing in this function?
Home bias?
Yeah, so that you think everything needs to be in other organizations, in other countries, and other cultures like at home?
Well, absolutely not. You need to account for all the cultural differences and the differences in upbringing and customs and how businesses run there and how relationships are built. But this is why you need to have a positive attitude and have open eyes to actually see this and then adapt your behavior.
Okay, let's come to the last question. Imagine a company, a small organization comes to you and asks for help. They need vendors for their project. What would be your advice for them, how they find the best vendors for them?
Well, first of all, it is really important for companies to acknowledge that they do need the help from some vendors and find the trust in them to subcontract. Larger companies are more familiar with that because they've been doing it for several years, but smaller companies, maybe it's the beginning for them, they don't have so much trust, so they find it more difficult. So as a general advice, I would say, just go with it and see how you feel and see how it goes and if it has results. And then, very important, play according to your size. So if you are a very large company and you try to find services for a very small one, the dynamics are very different and there will be issues from the beginning. And the other way around, if you are a small company and you want services, you should really avoid going to the larger beasts, because their processes are so convoluted and so difficult that they will not meet your expectations at all.
Okay, that really makes sense. Thank you very much for speaking with me about vendor management. I think it's a very important topic because vendors and clinical research are so important. It does not work anymore without vendors. It doesn't matter how big a sponsor is, vendors are all over the place. And we spoke a lot about communication. I think that will be a separate topic for one of our next videos. I know that you also train in communication because it's a very important topic, and I'm really looking forward to that. Thanks once again. I hope you liked our video. Leave your comments on our YouTube channel, send us emails, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.